AfterBuzzers, you are watching the after show for Taboo. What happens in the season finale? Stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Creepy music. Sorry, guys, it's not Tehran's usual, 21 Guns? Or
21 Savage.
21 Savage. I have no idea who they are, what we were listening to over the last couple episodes, but no idea.
Because James is a savage. 21 Savage is a...
Okay, now it makes more sense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey guys, welcome back. You are watching the after show for Taboo. We're covering the season finale. You've been with us for 8 episodes, and the funny thing is, our other hosts have not. So you can find me at Rick Hong, RICKHONG, on all social media, and I'm with the lovely Olivia Gabaree.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in for the season finale. I'm your host, Olivia Gabaree. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter, The Real OG.
So, okay, guys, so we've lost Abigail Frere tonight, and also Tehran. I am Tehran, but you know where you guys can find them is just their names, Abigail Frere. I don't want to spell it out. And Tehran, you can find him at I am Tehran.
Yes.
So, season finale, what'd you guys think, Olivia? Was it satisfying?
I think it was satisfying. We tied up a lot of loose ends, and of course, as I predicted, James was going to come out on top. Despite the fact that he was locked up and it looked like it was never going to happen, he pulled it off as usual.
Yeah, he's always one step ahead of everybody, even as we thought that he might not be.
Exactly.
Okay, so we open up, and I was thinking that from the last episode, it was going to start on Strange and James being in the prison. But instead, we're thrown for a loop, and it's Zilpha walking in London, and she has written a letter to James kind of saying what is on her mind and what she's thinking. And I think, was it you that predicted her demise?
Abby.
It was Abby.
Predicted
Okay.
it.
So Abby predicted her. Abby's, just like Zilpha, she's Zilch. But yeah, so Abby predicted that Zilpha was going to kill herself.
And it was very ironic the way she did it. Just, as we were hearing the voiceover of the letter, she was speaking kind of vaguely, talking about freedom and how this was finally her chance, and hopefully she'll see James once she reaches that point, and then she's dead.
Yeah, no, literally for a few seconds or for a few moments, or as I was listening to it, I thought, hey, she's going to USA.
Right. And then it kind of got me thinking, how would she ever get to the United States if James wasn't with her?
Right.
So obviously something was off.
Because again, the last episode, he kind of said, hey, you can go along your merry way. You're not with me anymore.
Exactly.
Do we really know why he decided to cut ties with his sister?
I don't know exactly why, but what I'm gathering is just because of he felt like she wasn't as pure to him as she was, because obviously the exorcism happened. And also remember, once Zilpha and James finally got to be together, he was having PTSD flashbacks of his mother, so obviously that could definitely interfere as well.
Hence the title Taboo.
Exactly. And I'm wondering if the fact that James did cut ties with Zilpha, if that caused her to kill herself.
Yeah, because she kind of talked about she felt like she was free, which I'm thinking that she meant she was free of Gary.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe it made her take a second look at herself to say, I'm materialistic. It was all about having a higher place in society and money and this and that. So maybe that's another reason why she's saying I'm free, and she's just like, I can go see you in the afterlife, or
right. And maybe just free of men in general, because she was always very submissive, and there was always somebody that was in charge of her. And now that James wants nothing to do with her and she killed her husband, she has nobody else to answer to, and that could obviously leave her to feel alone or empty, or it could also leave her to be feeling free, like she doesn't have to answer to anybody anymore.
Yeah, I like that. I agree with that.
Yeah.
So what we do see is what I thought was going to happen in this opening scene, where we finally see James and Sir Strange finally in the prison talking to each other, and James is rambling to Sir Strange about the confession this is what you made me do. This is what I've seen. And, Strange is telling him, like, dude, I'm not going to incriminate myself.
Right. So they obviously come to an understanding. And this was really James's only key to all of his entire plan happening. If this event here didn't happen, his whole entire plan would not have worked.
Right.
And that's why he was working so hard the whole previous episode to get this meeting with Strange, because that was the only reason he agreed to cooperate, is if he got this meeting.
And we got a little bit more of like revelation where James is telling him, this is what actually happened to me. The ship sunk and I was rescued by an African, and he tells Sir Strange, I've seen a darkness that you cannot conceive.
Right. And now that's making a lot of sense of the way James has been acting throughout this entire series. His mysterious language that he's talking is obviously something he learned in Africa, probably from the man in this tribe that saved him. And his darkness and his PTSD and his savage-like actions are obviously they're obviously results of whatever it is that he's talking about, that the darkness that he participated in.
And that he learned in Africa from those savages, or from the Africans, or the tribes that he was hanging out with. Also, it's like that led to some of your like favorite scenes throughout the season, all the bloody ones.
Yeah, you know how I love those. But it's weird because obviously once he was exposed to this type of darkness, it obviously triggered the way he is now. But Strange mentioned that he only chose the boys that had shadows of death to work on his ships with him. And he never thought that James would make it past the ship, never mind to this extent. So obviously James had always been troubled even before the slave ship incident.
So let's try to like rewind or think back to what episode, maybe 2, where Strange meets Delaney. And because Strange kind of acts like he doesn't really remember or know him. So is it kind of just, it starts, do you think like throughout the season or throughout as their interaction, he starts, I do remember that guy?
I think he always remembered him. He just was guilty. And remember that they're tied from this ship that was illegal, essentially, because it held slaves, and this is something that Strange wanted to keep under wraps, and he didn't want anyone to know he had anything to do with. So if he admitted to knowing James because of this ship, then he would be admitting to a lot more.
Yeah, great point. So like obviously James is telling Strange to, hey, I won't give you up in testimony if you get me a ship.
Exactly. And it kind of took some work to get Strange to agree to this, because he wasn't necessarily down for it right off the bat.
Because the guy's in a jail cell, he thinks he's like, dude, I got you by the balls, and clearly he didn't.
Exactly. And Strange didn't really see James holding this over his head as much as he had, because he thought, all you have is one witness. You don't really have anything against me. But then he explained how he had Godfrey, and how Godfrey was in on all of these meetings, and he realized that his hand was a lot stronger.
Yeah, and we all, and throughout that we see snippets of Godfrey dressed as a woman, hiding himself throughout the city, and Atticus or their friends kind of being able to get him from place to place without being given up or being found out. Exactly.
And so all James really wanted was freedom, obviously, he had to be physically free from the tower, and he wanted a free passage to get to America, but obviously he needed a ship to get there. So all really Strange wanted in exchange was the Nuka Sound.
Yeah, and so now we see everything unraveling. We see the plan unfolding. We've got Lorna, getting Robert, or like Lorna goes to like a lockbox or gives a key to little Robert, or maybe James Jr.
Yeah.
And and he starts running around town giving letters to Brace and Chumley and Atticus. So we clearly see that there's something going on that's part of the big picture.
And I knew, I don't know if you remember, but I knew that Lorna and James were going to end up partnering
you said that.
up. She's such a strong woman and a strong character, and I love how while James is doing his thing and doing what he can despite the fact that he's locked up, she's threading all of this together to make sure this plan gets executed perfectly.
So are you bummed that they actually didn't get together before the end of the season?
I don't think so. I think they're better off as business partners and partners in crime as opposed to romantic partners.
I'll tell you who was actually bummed that didn't happen is Abby. I'm not.
Probably.
Abby will take any of those scenes any way she can get them with Tom Hardy. So, so what I thought was actually funny in this, in the episode was seeing as we see there, they've got Helga. And I don't know the other prostitutes' names, or she was ever given a name.
I don't think we know her name.
But I like how they're in custody, or they're supposedly like in a safe house, and she's totally like fucking around with the guard.
Well, yeah. I mean, essentially, not that I'm into womanizing at all, but these are their jobs and their professions, and whether the guards are using it to their advantage or not, this could also be in Helga and the prostitute's advantage as well, because they're not being treated as prisoners or being locked in a tower like James is. They're still doing their jobs that they would have been doing if they were locked up or not. And if it gets them some special treatment along the way, so be it.
Yeah, and women always have power. The men are weak. Women always have power. So.
Yep.
But yeah, so we see what happens is that clearly Strange is scrambling. He gets he summons Hilton. He summons Pettifer. So now as the plan starts unraveling, we see Pettifer go to the safe house and he grabs Helga and the other woman, and they're like, well, where are we going? So that's which we find out soon that it's a part of James's plan.
Exactly, because remember, they're the witnesses and they were the ones that ratted James out in the first place. So if the East India Company doesn't have them for their testimony, essentially the case is no longer valid. So Strange and James teamed up together to make it seem like the prostitutes were kidnapped or the witnesses were kidnapped, but in reality,
we see Pettifer, stop the carriage, and then Atticus shows up, because that's part of Atticus is part of the plan is to, hey, go get them. And then there's the reveal where Helga is actually told, hey, by the way, this is who's actually responsible, or at least part one of this is who's responsible for your daughter's death.
Right. And then Pettifer gets killed.
Boom.
But I think that was a part of the plan as always, because Strange can't have any loose ends, and if Pettifer and the other accomplices are in on this, then they have something to hold against him. And the whole entire reason why this is happening is because something is held against him to begin with.
Right. And we slowly start seeing even Strange kind of losing it. He's clearly making provisions to get the boat.
Yeah.
And his guys like asking him all these questions. So like, what should I do about this? And and you see Strange getting annoyed, and he's like, dude, everybody's insane.
Right. He's just doing whatever it takes to get what he wants.
And then part two of what we just talked about with Helga is Lorna actually shows up, and she has Winter's friend, the little boy, and he, tells Helga like that apparently like during the night while Winter was sleeping, he saw like some guys in a boat, which was the East India Company, come, and they killed her in her sleep.
They killed her in her sleep?
I thought that's what they said.
Well, she was present when James was in the river, and then she died by the river. I mean, unless she was sleeping over there and was killed there. I don't know, I kind of missed that part.
Yeah, okay, and because like they're also kind of street kids, so, or maybe they were just...
They could have just been sleeping outside.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. Why was he using the term ghost, though? The little boy, he was saying he's like a ghost-like person that killed Winter. I just thought it was interesting the way he explained it, because obviously it's not really a ghost, it's a member of the East India Company that killed Winter. But I was wondering if you drew any...
No, I do remember him saying it. Yeah, and it does draw, something in my brain. I guess maybe just because it's like they're like like if you're an assassin, if you're like a ninja,
yeah,
or like people always tell me, it's like, hey, dude, you just ghosted out of there.
Yeah,
sure.
sure.
Just someone just kind of came in, silent killer, killed her and then took off and maybe just ghost because you're kind of anonymous, or maybe.
Okay.
You know, and he's a kid. He's probably not used to seeing, you know, someone just being murdered in cold blood like that.
Right.
So it's like a ghost, you know, like a phantom or, you know, something scary. Mm-hmm. That's my take on it, but.
Yeah, no, I was just curious because I was wondering that too. I mean, I thought there was a reason, but I couldn't draw as to why.
So, you know, when we see James kind of, because he was beaten so bad, he was beaten so bad, so like they're like, okay, we need to kind of patch this guy up.
What?
You know, because he was bleeding, like, you know, he was kind of when he was in prison. We see him just like a scene of him just kind of.
Well, I think that he purposely.
You think it's on purpose?
100%.
Okay.
This had to be part of the plan. I think that he purposely, whether he like poisoned himself or made himself sick in some way, he had to remove himself from the prison and be seen with the doctor for a certain amount of time in order for the plan to be executed.
Okay, so it was methodical. It wasn't by.
100%. Because remember when the doctor was treating him and said he needed an additional half hour, Robert was outside of the prison making call noises, and then all of a sudden James was like, no, I'm good. I'm ready to go now. Right.
So, okay.
I think he was just buying time.
And then, so now the next thing that we see is Chumley is part of the plan in terms of like what he needs to be doing. And so he reveals that he's got to be making these like fireworks, these explosions.
Yeah, because James's letter to Chumley, you know, the one that Lorna or Robert delivered to him, said something about causing confusion or making a bang. And then that's why Chumley was like, okay, James.
So, yeah. And then we see one of the most badass scenes ever is Lorna with the Countess, or AKA Carlsbad.
Right. I liked how she played that off, though. At first, I wasn't really sure where she was going with it, but she posed as like a makeup saleswoman, I guess.
Avon calling back in the 1800s.
Yeah, exactly. And she speaks about paints and powders was the key word.
You know, yeah, and it's funny, they refer to just different weird things, like she's like saying the front admiral, the rear admiral.
I know, making like dirty jokes.
Yeah, dirty innuendos. It was clever dialogue, definitely like one of my favorite scenes in this season finale for sure.
Yeah, it was a little comic relief, I guess you could say.
And you can see like Lorna's, as you said, you know how you talked about Lorna and James teaming up. You definitely see Lorna's part in like she's like a big part of how this plan unfolds.
100%. And especially you know, if we didn't have Lorna, it would be very hard to get to Carlsbad, and to even, you know, a woman had to execute something like that. Carlsbad is sitting there with other women just gossiping, playing cards, and the key to this was, you know, playing it on makeup, and that's how they got alone with each other.
So I'm trying to recollect, but like we didn't really see this, like the conversation between James and her happening about how this plan was just going to unravel. It just kind of started unraveling, and we started seeing Lorna's real part in this episode.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. You know, so now we see James gets dragged in front of Solomon Coop and the jury.
Right.
You know, and he's just chanting gibberish, or he's doing his thing. He's chanting his chant, and you know, the guy's like, he's like, I'll have you by the balls if you don't sit there and tell us the truth and what's going on. And we find out that, you know, James kind of tells him like, this is what's, you know, it's almost like a Jedi mind trick. He's like, this is what's going to happen. And of course it happens. You know, he's like, the charges of treason are going to be dropped. Nothing's going to happen, you know, and you guys are going to release me.
Right. Because he knew that their entire case was invalid because Helga was no longer being held, and the East India Company had to drop the charges because they didn't have a testimony and they didn't have a case. But another important thing to note, I think, is real quick, just going back, the conversation between Lorna and Carlsbad, because the whole entire point of their meeting was to get a free passage for James's ship to America, and obviously Carlsbad is an American spy, so she holds the key to that pretty much. And
this is key in this episode. This scene with the two ladies is key because because Lorna actually gets the rite of passage, the
Right.
letter, the rite of passage.
And she does so because she highlights to Carlsbad that their team of spies has a leak, and she and James know what the leak is, and basically blackmails her with that and just says, look, we know the rat in your group, and we have the power to take that out to avoid, this whole entire plan going under. So either you can give us the rite of passage and we'll take out the rat for you, or we can leave you to figure it out yourself. And
so again
bad.
in this episode, this first piece is very, very key in terms of Lorna being able to get that letter from Carlsbad for
Right.
James's plans to really, really go through.
Exactly.
And so now that James is free, he's at home and he's finally reading the letter that we see in the beginning of the episode, and and he's in denial.
Right. I think we actually see raw emotion from James, because despite all of this planning that he has going on and every single calculated move, this is the only thing that he didn't plan for. This is the only thing that he did not have control over, and that's why we see him so emotionally raw in this scene.
And I'm also it's not his usual just grumble
Right,
that
he's really crying and he's weak, and instead of standing up and getting ready to execute the plan, it's almost like he's feeling sorry for himself and he doesn't want to move.
And he's telling Lorna, well, I would hear her singing and everything, and she's like, wake up.
Yeah.
She's like, the dead don't sing. Even though he claims that he hears them.
Right. But he really didn't. That's why this is kind of confusing, because I don't know how he and Zilpha were even communicating to begin with, whether it's telepathically or not, but he heard nothing of her, and he claims to always be hearing of his mom and whatever, but I think that's just evidence of PTSD.
So you know what I said every episode, every time Abby brought it up about Zilpha and whether we talked about it, whether her character was strong or whether she was not strong, I kept saying, hey, the chick's got diamonds, she should go to Paris. So my whole thing is, if James didn't plan on the fact that she was going to be killing herself, then what do you think he thought that she was going to do? Was she going to stay in London? Was she going to go somewhere? Or that was the whole point, it's just, here's money for you to live off of, here are your 2 diamonds, and go do whatever the hell you want to do. Do you think that he had a set place of what she was going to do, or he just is like, here's your money, I don't care?
I'm not sure. I mean, those were her tokens to freedom, and I think that maybe the smartest move for her would be to just completely flee London altogether. But I'm wondering if he would have caved in and actually allowed her to come to America with him.
Okay.
And maybe he just didn't want to clue her in on the plan in order to protect her in some way.
She would have screwed it up.
Right, because she is portrayed as such a weak character, whereas Lorna was contributing to their ability to leave altogether.
Right.
I'm not sure that Zilpha would have been able to been held up to the same standard.
And then we see Chichester, and he heads to Strange, and Strange's laughing at him because he's like, hey, because he thinks he's just put one over on Chichester by doing a deal with James.
Right.
We see Chichester's just angry, and we see that Strange is just insanely happy because he thinks he's getting everything that he wants. And then here's part two of what we were talking about with the letter and everything is James goes to Dumbarton.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, I didn't see this coming. I didn't see the fact that maybe it's because I like Michael Kelly, the actor, and he's a badass in House of Cards, but I didn't see the fact that he was the actual traitor.
Yeah, I didn't see it either, just because he had been helping James from the beginning. You know what I mean?
Even the episode where everybody's blaming everything on cholera. He's just like, oh, I hide everything in cholera. Had no clue that he would be the turncoat.
He came up with that plan for James. He gave him his out, and I really didn't see it coming. But
yeah, and so James kind of baits him a little bit, and he's just like, well, give me, he's just like, I'll give you, Dumbarton refers to that letter. If you give me this, I'll give you that. And clearly not knowing that Carlsbad or Lady Countess had already given them the letter to have the rite of passage.
Right. James was one step ahead once again.
And so he kills him.
Yes.
He kills him. He does what James does, and and then hangs him. And
in a very savage manner, as usual. Dyes his head blue with his own, with his own dye. I feel like that could be seen as taboo because he's killed with his own trade. Oh,
the only thing is, I wish it would have been if he would have dipped him in red, white, and blue. That'd have been really awesome.
Yeah, that would have. It would have been ironic for sure.
And and so then we see just the sloppy, nasty king, and he's talking to Solomon Coop, and basically the king's like, "Fuck them all. I don't give a shit about anybody. Let's go kill this guy." Right,
because at the end of the day, he is the crown. So he didn't even care about the Nuka sound at that point. He just wanted James to be out.
Yeah, he's like this guy pulled a fast one on me. It's like, yeah, he's dead. Let's just kill him. I don't care about territory, whatever. He's like, because he probably thinks, as maybe, and I could be wrong about this, but how probably people in history thought that England was, thinking we're gonna win anyways.
Yeah.
Against America, which they clearly didn't. And here is, so after we go from there, we find out that Brace, he's not joining the ship.
Right. And I know that James said, you're my father's right hand man. This is my father's land and territory, but now we're going to my mother's. But I'm wondering, could it be some type of payback because it was revealed that he killed his father?
That's what I was thinking.
Finally that, because he was just James was acting so okay about the whole entire situation once Brace finally revealed that he killed Taurus. So I knew that down the line there had to be some type of
repercussion.
Yeah, exactly.
Although, I wasn't sure, because I remember that episode when they're talking about it, and he says I know that you killed my father, is because James had killed people so savagely throughout the season. If Brace is that's what's gonna Brace is gonna come to his, once I'm done using you for everything that I'm gonna kill you, but instead it's he's like, here's your punishment. You don't get to go with us.
Yeah.
But it's not that bad of a deal. I mean, he still gets the property.
Yeah, it's not that bad of a deal, but I'm wondering if, he's gonna have to face the backlash of all of James's actions. Because he was attached to the family. He was the family servant. It probably is assumed that he had this type of inside information on the Americans and James's plan and whatever. So it's possible that he could face
he knows that there could be some doom awaiting him by staying. Sure. And so then now we get to the best part of the whole episode. And, finally we see this, this whole season's been so slow and dark and mystery. And now we just see action.
Fast.
Yeah, a lot of action. We see the King's men coming in. We see the explosions, the booby traps set by Chumley. I don't know why Helga was dumb enough to go back after
her gun.
Yeah, that didn't kind of make any sense.
I know, that was foolish. And I mean, now it makes sense. This is what James had anticipated, because he called on Chumley for making something that made a bang or caused commotion. But it's I don't know if you picked up on something like this, but how did James anticipate the fact that the prince was going to try to kill him and go against everything? Because obviously we know that if James died, the Nuka sound would automatically go to the Americans. So how could he be so sure that the prince was willing to risk that?
And it's interesting that you bring that up, because I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, it was, I mean, granted, throughout the season, and it's a show and everything, he's always been one step ahead, but that's kind of something that, James never really had a relationship with the king to be able to kind of, or the crown to really maybe think that they would send troops, or maybe it was just a safeguard.
Yeah, it could be just a precaution, but that's one thing that was unclear to me.
Yeah, it's unclear to me. I mean, if you guys think something different, please put it in the comments. Even though the season's done, we're still going to read them, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it. Twitter us, tweet us, tweet us. So now so the booby traps go off. A lot of the Kingsmen die. Helga's dead. Lorna gets shot. And I saw this coming a little bit, but I don't know if you did. When you're messing with bombs and you're sitting there throwing things, like in a lot of war movies, what happens is Chumley kind of blows himself up.
Yeah. I thought he died. I wrote down Chumley's dead, but then obviously we saw that he was barely breathing, but he was still there on the ship.
Yeah, I thought the same thing too. I thought that okay, he's dead, leave him. But clearly, like, they still manage, and I don't really know what the purpose was to. You know what? Maybe it's because he still has all that, since they have the powder like on the boat. He's still a chemist, so like his brain, they still need. I was just thinking, I was like, leave him for dead. That's what I was thinking. But now that I'm thinking about it sitting here, it's like, oh well, if he can survive, he's still a lot of use to them because they've got the.
Exactly. And I think not that James really acts like he owes anybody anything, but Chumley played a big part on this whole entire plan succeeding, and whether James is loyal or not, he can't just leave him for dead. He depended on him and he did a lot for him, so I think that he deserves to move forward if he can move forward.
Which we kind of see him burnt to a crisp on the boat, and
yeah.
So we'll see about his fate or not. How he does across like the ocean is anyone's guess. And finally, we see what should be coming to him in terms of we see Sir Strange gets a letter, and he finally thinks that he has everything.
Exactly. He thinks the plan has been executed flawlessly.
And boom.
Yep. Obviously, James is one step ahead once again.
Yeah, and he's Strange dead. So I mean, it's amazing to see how every loose end just keeps getting tied up, and then we see Chichester going to the house, and Brace is obviously kind of catatonic because he's or catatonic or whatever. I can't think of the word at the moment, but he's just in a daze because he just can't believe I royally got fucked. I'm still here, and Chichester finds what he needs, and that's testimony from Godfrey and I believe James too.
Yes, the signed letter from both of them.
So he's able
giving up Strange. But now I'm wondering, why would it matter to give up Strange if Strange is dead?
Because I think it's more to take down the East, because Strange is dead.
The East India Company as a whole. Okay.
Or to screw them for sure.
Okay.
And maybe even hurt. Now, well, I guess the crown wouldn't have anything to do with it, but I think just to kind of screw with the East India Company and say, or just, sometimes even for people, it's just whether they want punishment or not punishment. It's just about the truth.
Yeah, I mean, Chichester always highlighted throughout every episode how much justice meant to him. So.
Yeah, it's like a Tom Cruise and A Few Good Men. I want the truth.
Yeah, I guess so.
And finally we see they're sailing away. And so now here's the kicker. So it looks like, the show is kind of wrapped up. It really looks like the show is wrapped up and maybe the series is wrapped up. But then they're talking about the gunpowder, and James says, we're Americans,
right.
And, so we're not giving it to anybody. We're holding on to it.
Which is ironic, because this whole time they were making this gunpowder for the Americans, but come to find out they're not even going to America at this point.
Yeah, we find that they talk about Ponta Delgada.
Yes, and they have to meet still this mysterious character, Colonnade.
Yep.
Who's supposedly an American, right? But we don't know who Colonnade is. We don't know their reasoning for going to... What is it? Ponta Delgada?
Yeah, Ponta Delgada.
So it kind of leaves it open for another
season. So which is kind of cool in the sense that we've got our protagonists, but now it opens up a whole door of antagonists.
Right.
Like another whole, maybe like a whole new setting for the show possibly. I don't know if you feel so. I don't know if you which way you feel about a season 2 or
I mean, it's another set of challenges because now they're trying to explore this new land, but I'm sure that they're going to come across many challenges along the way because despite whether they're Americans or they're not, there's still a war going on, you know? So I don't see it being that easy.
And then, so do you think if there's a season 2 that Lorna and James actually do get together?
I don't think so. I think they're going to remain strictly business.
Because I'm his mother?
Yeah. You see, that would be, if she had any other intentions, that would be pretty weird of her to say.
Do you feel like there's like loose ends though in terms of, I mean, we did hear in this season, or like even he talked, like James revealed to Strange about what happened to him on the ship, but do we still feel like there's like some loose ends about the whole mysticism, like how he got those powers, and maybe that's stuff that needs to be explained in a season 2 or 3 or 4, maybe like flashbacks of him actually being with those tribes or with those Africans or with those savages, like how he picked up these weird spiritual powers.
100%. I think his past has a lot to do with who he is as a person now. So I'd love to explore his experience with Strange in the East India Company on the slave ship, his experience with the Africans once they did save him, and I mean, we need to explore the past, but also now I'm thinking, yeah, the East India Company is out of the way, but the crown isn't. You know, he beat a troop, but he didn't beat the country as a whole.
Right.
And as Americans, he's automatically at war with the British. So
good point. And something else we didn't see get actually 100% revealed is James's relationship with Robert.
Exactly.
So like maybe like in season 2 they would talk, you maybe learn that, or maybe like Robert would reveal, or somebody would reveal that, hey, by the way, your dad's James Delaney, not Horace Delaney, or you're not a bastard kid that's just running around.
Right. But the fact that James decided to include him and give him such a large part in this very large plan, I think says a lot to where their relationship is going to go. So we see that Lorna, like, okay, Lorna's okay, hopefully. I mean, she's pretty much okay. She's got a gunshot wound, no big deal. What's his face might die, but probably not. Yeah, he's just gonna look like crap. Yeah, I think he'll survive.
He'll look like crap. Okay, James is free. Atticus got shot in the head, kind of, or got grazed.
But I think he's good, right? Yep.
And he's kind of a good like right hand man, because like James can't be everywhere.
Exactly.
So he's kind of a good like right hand man enforcer, like a Han Solo, Chewbacca type guy to have. For the show. Yeah, I don't know. You guys, I mean, tell us what you think. Do you think that, there's going to be a season 2? Do you think that it kind of got wrapped up the way that it needs to be wrapped up, and we can kind of just say like, hey, he sailed off to the sunset? And how did you feel about the series finale overall and the season?
Looking forward to your answers.
Yeah. So thank you for watching with us this season. We're sorry that, Abby and Tehran couldn't be here tonight, but, you got me, Rick Hong, RICKHONG, on all social media, and you got my lovely co-host,
Olivia Gabaree. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, The Real OG.
And, I guess maybe we'll see you for season 2. Thank you.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.